Beatlemania, a mass hysteria that swept through fans of the Beatles. In this 1963 photo, girls scream, cry, and reach out to their idols in pure ecstasy, barely able to hear the music over the deafening noise. In the early 20th century, Tibet levied about 2,000 types of state taxes, including taxes on marriage, childbirth, the right to sing, dance, ring bells, and beat drums. In 1926, Tibet began creating an army and urgently needed money, and since all the usual taxes had already been imposed, the Dalai Lama introduced a tax on ears. Auschwitz was the deadliest of the Nazi concentration camps. Over 1.1 million people died there. Of the 7,500 camp staff responsible for these deaths, only 750 were punished. Ans van Dijk before the special court in Amsterdam, February 1947. Dutch collaborator who handed Jews over to the Nazis during World War II. She was the only woman in the Netherlands sentenced to death for collaborating with the occupiers. A Dutch woman with her head shaved and smeared with tar, punished for relations with Germans. She's being punished by those who capitulated in 5 days, but found the courage to take revenge on their women. Amsterdam, 1945. John F. Kennedy Jr., age 3, salutes his father's casket. U.S., 1963. In 1895, 2 cars collided in Ohio. The oddity of this case is that the automobile industry was just beginning, and there were only 2 cars in the entire state. A procedure for removing freckles using dry ice, 1930s. Beauty treatments of the past were often painful and unsafe. Charles King, president of Liberia in 1927, entered the Guinness Book of Records for the most fraudulent election in history, winning 234,000 votes in a country with only 15,000 registered voters. Above, the father's reaction to the birth of a son. Below, the reaction to the birth of a daughter. Azerbaijan, 1909. The smartest photo. Participants of the 5th Solvay Congress. Among them are Albert Einstein, Marie Curie, and Niels Bohr. 17 out of 29 participants received the Nobel Prize, 1927. Los Angeles police conducting a special operation to capture a criminal who killed an elderly woman for her wallet, 1960. Unit 731, a conveyor belt of death. A special unit of the Japanese armed forces conducted biological weapons research, experimenting on live humans to determine how long a person could survive under various conditions, such as boiling water, dehydration, starvation, frostbite, and electric shock. These 19th century photographs illustrate various levels of intoxication, 1860s. Oskar Schindler, the German entrepreneur who saved nearly 1,200 Jews during the Holocaust by giving them work in his factories in Poland and the Czech Republic. A chimpanzee astronaut receives an apple after the first successful spaceflight. USA, 1961. Red Light District, Amsterdam, 1968. An Iraqi POW comforts his 4-year-old son in the yard of a dusty prison in Iraq, 2003. The trampoline was invented by Eskimos to spot whales as early as possible during hunting. They used a stretched walrus skin that could throw them nearly to the height of the 4th floor. Geisha delivery service, Japan, 1901. Edward Smith, the captain of the Titanic. The voyage on the Titanic was supposed to be Smith's last before retirement. A segregationist rally in the U.S., 1961. The crowd chants slogans claiming that racial integration is a form of communism. Riots, 1960, Tokyo. In those years, Japan witnessed mass student group protests. The main demand was the closure of U.S. military bases. In the early last century, weight loss products were extremely dangerous. Pills containing dinitrophenol were sold. They prevented calories from turning into fat, but caused lethal poisoning. This is Dr. Katie Booman, the computer scientist behind the first ever image of a black hole. She developed the algorithm that turned telescopic data into the historic photo we see today. Edith Piaf and Prisoners, Germany, 1944. During a performance at a camp, the singer took a photo with 120 prisoners. Upon returning to Paris, she sent the photo to an underground workshop where the prisoners' faces were re-photographed for fake documents. She later returned to the same camp, hiding the documents in a suitcase with a false bottom. She smuggled out some people as musicians, while others escaped later. General Douglas MacArthur accepts Japan's surrender aboard the USS Missouri, Tokyo Bay, September 2, 1945. Before you, the remains of Gustav Vasa, a Swedish king from the 16th century. The king who ruled Sweden nearly 500 years ago lies before us as if on display. Crown, scepter. Everything is in place, but only a skeleton remains of the king. A grim but powerful reminder that time spares no one, not even kings. French women, accused of collaborating with the Germans, are paraded through the streets. It seems they are also being forced to give the Hitler salute. World War II. Protesters demand that President Truman take action against the execution of people, USA, 1946. Edward Bloch, a Jewish doctor and personal physician to Adolf Hitler. He was under Hitler's personal protection, who called him a noble Jew. When Columbus discovered America, this continent was densely populated. 90 million people lived here, or about 1/3 of the world's population. But the colonizers destroyed half of the population. Dr. Josef Mengele, one of the main war criminals in history, conducted inhumane experiments on people in the Auschwitz death camp. Ma Barker, the mother of all American gangsters, organized the Barker Gang. She was killed along with her son Fred in a fierce, hours-long shootout with FBI agents who surrounded her home in 1935. Sunglasses were originally intended for syphilis patients, as the disease causes extreme sensitivity of the eyes to light, and the glasses help them go outside calmly. During hyperinflation in Germany, workers were paid twice a day, morning and evening, and during lunch, they were released from work to buy something with their rapidly depreciating money. Jewish children in Auschwitz hold hands as they walk to the gas chamber, unaware of their fate. During World War I, cats were kept in trenches to warn of gas attacks in advance. During World War II, they were taken aboard submarines as live air quality detectors. A photo from a New York parade celebrating the end of World War I. A car with captured German carrier pigeons drives past the spectators, 1918. Special anti-gas cribs for infants, England, 1942. The Real Batman, 1892. The photo shows Bill Smith, a butcher who fought off thieves and patrolled the streets of New York at night looking for criminals. On October 22, 1895, a train, running at full speed to make up for its delay, failed to brake in time. It crossed the Montparnasse station, broke through the facade, and went 10 meters beyond. A school bus on the streets of Taiwan, 1950s. A policeman and an elderly woman during protests against a new tax in central London, 1990. North Korea had not participated in wars for 60 years, but their generals looked so out of shape that they could be defeated with a magnet. The Republic of South Africa is the world leader in the number of rapes. Every fourth man in this country is a rapist. A woman born in South Africa is more likely to be raped than to learn to read. The expression on your face when you win the jackpot. Australia, 1958. In 1939, mills in the United States began shipping flour in colorful sacks. This was done so that the poor could later sew clothes from the sackcloth. Previously unknown photo of Osama bin Laden at Oxford in 1971, about 14 years old at the time. French resistance member Georges Blind smiles while being executed by the Germans, 1944. Korean soldier Yang Kyung-jong, who fought for 3 armies during World War II, Japan, the Soviet Union, and Germany. The famous British Airways Flight 5390. The pilot, having neglected his seatbelt, is halfway out of the cockpit. The cockpit windshield had popped out during the flight. To prevent the pilot from being completely sucked out, a flight attendant had to hold the captain by his legs until landing, 1990. Advertisement for a weight gain product, USA, 1950s. During World War II, the U.S. Department of Defense commissioned Walt Disney to design children's gas masks. A crowd of children runs to a candy store on the day the government rationing of sweets ended. UK, 1953. The clock frozen at 8:15 during the bombing of Hiroshima. Home massage, 19th century. A South Vietnamese widow weeps as the bell at a Buddhist pagoda in Saigon tolls the fire, January 28, 1973. The United States began a sharp reduction in its troops in the country. Shell casings after shelling enemy positions. Vietnam, 1967. U.S. delegate displays a Soviet submachine gun captured by American forces in July 1950 at the UN Security Council, accusing the USSR of supplying weapons to North Korea. Self-proclaimed Reverend Father Yod with his wives, 1970s. His Los Angeles commune of the 70s turned sex, drugs, and rock and roll into a brilliant religious formation. In 1947, boxer Sugar Ray Robinson did not want to enter the ring with Jimmy Doyle because he had a dream in which he killed his opponent. Robinson was persuaded to participate in the fight. The 8th round ended with Doyle falling after a punch from Robinson and being unable to continue the fight. He later died in the hospital. Princess Diana in her car shortly before the fatal crash. A gruesome photo from the Soviet Institute of Experimental Pathology and Therapy in Sukhumi, 1975. Most of our knowledge about hypothermia comes from horrific human experiments conducted in Nazi Germany. The director of the Belgrade Zoo persuades a runaway chimpanzee named Sammy to return to the zoo, 1988. Freed prisoners of the Vobeline concentration camp awaiting medical assistance. World War II, Germany, 1945. A woman who survived the atomic bombing of Nagasaki, 1945. Hamas militants in the residence of Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas after its capture, June 15, 2007. A settlement of poor people in Central Park, New York, 1932. From 1871, a ban on homosexuality was in effect in Germany. Even a kiss was punished. 50,000 people were convicted in the Third Reich. The law was not repealed after the war, and people remained in prisons until 1969. The fearless Bobby Leach performed a large number of life-threatening stunts. For example, in 1911, he crossed Niagara Falls by tumbling over it in a barrel. Leach died in 1926 after slipping on an orange peel. Strapless bra, USA, 1949. In May 1949, Charles Langs introduced an innovative solution for women sunbathing, a pair of bra cups that could be easily secured to the body with a special, safe adhesive. A good idea, but it never became widely used. Priests consecrating ballistic missiles named Satan, Russia, 2022. People going to a rally and leaving after the rally. Poster, Russian Empire, 1917. Woman drinking tea amid the ruins of her home after heavy bombing of London, 1940. Babies who lost their parents during the Vietnam War are airlifted to the USA for adoption, 1975. The Eternal Smile, the mummy of Hatshepsut, the most powerful female pharaoh in the history of Egypt. Iron lungs in polio hospital wards, 1950s. The average lifespan in ancient Rome was 20 to 30 years. By the age of 20, 60% of peers were already dead. Only 1 in 3 lived to 30. Men died in wars, women during childbirth. Sanitary dog finds a wounded soldier, World War I, 1916. Native Alaskans play the game Nulukatuk, 1965. The trampoline was invented by Eskimos to spot whales during hunting as early as possible. They used a stretched walrus skin, which could throw them to a height of almost 4 floors. In 1907, around 1,000 women from the Baltics arrived in New York in search of husbands, inspired by rumors of a woman shortage in America. They were met by interested young men on the pier. Maintenance of Unit 1 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, USSR, 1980s. These frames once symbolized progress. Now, they serve as a haunting reminder of the tragedy that followed. In the town of High Wycombe, every mayor is weighed in the town square. The tradition dates back to 1678. Residents believed that if a mayor gained weight, it meant he was stealing from the treasury and living too lavishly. In the photo, a crowd of white, civilized Americans mocks 2 participants in the civil rights movement, 1965. In 1926, 24-year-old Dorothy Ellen accidentally strangled gangster Michael O'Hara with a scarf during an encounter in a brothel. Despite it being an accident, she was sentenced to 15 years in prison. A lesson in an improvised school, Hiroshima, Japan, 1946. Teeth-sharpening ritual of Indonesian tribes, 1938. Symbol of maturity and beauty. British artillerymen, Kent, UK, 1940. An air raid caught an amateur theater troupe during a rehearsal, with no time to change into uniforms. Horse-shaped device used to hold children still during X-rays, mid-20th century. Crowds cheering Adolf Hitler's campaign to unite Austria and Germany, 1938. Palestinian refugee camp, Jordan, 1969. A rare photo of people enjoying casual conversation on September 11, 2001. Soviet T-3485 tanks lining up before the Battle of Berlin, 1945. Hand-dropped bombs, World War I. 17th century poison box disguised as a book. The photo shows everything that remained of a person who was sitting on the steps 250 meters from the nuclear explosion. Hiroshima, August 6th, 1945. A group of Inuit dragging a walrus home to butcher and eat, 1930. Police protect a group of black swimmers and desegregation supporters from an angry mob, Florida, 1964. Whether this clip sparked joy, anger, or just a bit of annoyance, I want to hear your thoughts below. Stick around for part 2 coming soon. Please hit like and subscribe to support the channel. See you.